When historians opened the sealed concrete bunker beneath Berlin, they discovered 30 children with Nazi uniforms who had been dead for 80 years, yet their fingernails and hair continued to grow. Their faces, preserved in an impossible state between life and death, were locked in silent screams. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community, challenging everything we thought we knew about death itself. The concrete bunker had remained sealed since the final days of World War II, hidden beneath layers of rubble and forgotten by time. A team of historical preservationists had been working to document underground structures when they encountered a massive steel door with no external markings. The door, nearly 8 inches thick and secured with a complex locking mechanism, showed no signs of corrosion despite the decades that had passed. Dr. Heinrich Müller, the lead archaeologist on site, described the moment they finally managed to open it using specialized equipment. The air that rushed out was cold, unnaturally cold, Dr. Müller recounted, his voice still trembling when interviewed months later. It carried a medical smell, like formaldehyde mixed with something sweet, something wrong. The team initially believed they had discovered an abandoned medical facility, or perhaps one of the many hidden laboratories where Nazi scientists conducted their infamous experiments. What awaited them inside was far more disturbing. The bunker contained a single massive chamber, approximately 3,000 square feet in size, with rows of small beds arranged with military precision. On each bed lay a child, dressed in immaculate Hitler Youth and League of German Girls uniforms. Their bodies appeared perfectly preserved, skin pale but without signs of decomposition.
Most disturbing of all, they looked peaceful, as if they had simply fallen asleep decades ago and never woken up. It was only upon closer examination that the team noticed the impossible: fresh growth of fingernails and hair. Some children had fingernails that had grown so long they curled around their small fingers multiple times. Hair had grown several feet in length, spilling over the edges of the beds and onto the floor. What should have been impossible was happening before their very eyes. These children, dead for nearly 8 decades, showed signs of ongoing biological processes. Dr. Elise Brenner, a forensic pathologist who was called to the site, fainted upon entering the chamber. When she regained consciousness, she refused to re-enter without a full hazmat suit. In 27 years of examining deceased individuals, I have never encountered anything that defies biological reality to this extent, she later stated in her official report.
These children display characteristics consistent with both death and life simultaneously. It is as if they exist in some terrible state between the two. The team discovered a small office adjacent to the main chamber. Inside, they found meticulous records kept by the facility's director, a pediatrician named Dr. Klaus Werner. The journals, written in precise handwriting, detailed the establishment of what he called Kindergarten der Unsterblichkeit, the kindergarten of immortality. Werner had been a respected children's doctor before the war, with a practice in Munich that served many prominent Nazi officials' families. His journals revealed that in 1942, he was personally tasked by Heinrich Himmler with a special project, creating the perfect Hitler Youth who would never grow old, never die, and could carry the ideology of the Third Reich through the centuries. The journals documented how Werner selected 30 children, all between the ages of 8 and 12, from families with the strongest Nazi party connections. The children were told they were being sent to a special leadership academy. Instead, they were brought to the underground facility where Werner began administering what he called the treatment. The nature of this procedure was described in clinical, detached language, but the details were enough to make several researchers require psychological counseling after reading the accounts. Werner had combined advanced medical techniques with what he described as ancient occult practices recovered from Tibet. The children were subjected to a series of injections containing compounds derived from rare Himalayan plants, combined with chemical formulations developed in SS laboratories. Following the injections, the children were subjected to a ritual that involved precise surgical incisions made while ancient Sanskrit mantras were recited. Werner noted that the children appeared to die during this process, their hearts stopping completely, but their bodies did not decompose. Most disturbing of all, Werner's final journal entries from April 1945 indicated that he believed his experiment had been successful. "The children sleep, but they are not dead in any true sense," he wrote. "Their hair and nails continue to grow. Internal measurements show cellular activity continues at a greatly reduced rate. They wait in suspended animation for the day the Reich rises again, when they will awaken as the perfect vanguard of our new world order." The final entry, dated May 1st, 1945, simply read, "Berlin has fallen. I have sealed the chamber. They will sleep until they are needed." Heil Hitler! Historical records show that Werner himself was captured by Soviet forces 3 days later. He was executed after a brief interrogation, taking the full details of his procedures to his grave. The discovery became even more terrifying when researchers began to monitor the children over a period of weeks. Time-lapse photography confirmed that their fingernails and hair were indeed growing at a rate of approximately 1 millimeter per day, slower than living children but unmistakably active. More disturbing still, subtle changes in facial expressions were documented. The peaceful expressions initially observed gradually transformed into what appeared to be expressions of extreme anguish or terror. Dr. Sarah Goldstein, a neurologist brought in to examine the children, made the most unsettling discovery of all. Using specialized equipment, she detected extremely faint but present electrical activity in their brains. "The patterns are unlike anything we've ever seen in either living or deceased individuals," she explained, visibly shaken during her presentation to colleagues. "It suggests some form of consciousness may be present, trapped within bodies that cannot move or respond. If these children are experiencing anything like consciousness, they have been experiencing it for 80 years, unable to communicate, unable to move, trapped in an endless nightmare." The international scientific community was thrown into chaos. Teams from around the world requested access to the site, but German authorities quickly seized control, classifying the bunker as a top-secret location. Rumors spread that several of the scientists initially involved with the discovery had begun experiencing severe night terrors, with some reportedly taking their own lives rather than continue their research. One researcher, who requested anonymity, described finding a previously overlooked detail in Werner's journals. He wrote about how the children would sometimes, very rarely, open their eyes for a brief moment. When this happened, the other children in the room would react, even though they appeared completely unconscious. It was as if they were somehow communicating with each other through some unknown mechanism. Werner described it as a collective consciousness developing among them. The mystery deepened when historians uncovered connections between Werner's work and other Nazi research programs. Documents suggested that Werner had collaborated with other infamous Nazi doctors, including Josef Mengele, incorporating their findings into his own experiments. Furthermore, references in his journals pointed to similar facilities that may have been established elsewhere in Nazi-occupied territories. The possibility that more such chambers exist, undiscovered, continues to haunt researchers. Professor James Harrington, a historian specializing in Nazi occult practices, suggested that Werner's work represented the culmination of the Reich's obsession with immortality. Hitler surrounded himself with individuals who were deeply invested in occult practices, Harrington explained. The Ahnenerbe, the Nazi Ancestral Research Division, sent expeditions around the world searching for mythical objects and ancient knowledge that might help them achieve supernatural power. Werner's experiment appears to have combined this occult knowledge with cutting-edge scientific techniques of the time. What makes the discovery even more disturbing is that the children appear to be slowly changing. Detailed measurements taken over several months have confirmed that they are not only growing hair and nails, but also undergoing subtle physical changes. Some of the children appear to have grown slightly taller, their bones lengthening at an imperceptible rate. Others show changes in facial structure, as if they are continuing to age, albeit at an extraordinarily slow pace. One scientist who examined the children reported an incident that has not officially acknowledged. "I was alone in the chamber, taking measurements of subject 14, a young girl who appeared to be about 10 years old," the scientist recounted, requesting anonymity. "As I leaned closer to examine a marking on her neck, her eyes suddenly opened. They were completely black, without iris or pupil, and seemed to look straight through me. Her lips didn't move, but I heard a voice in my head, speaking in German. It said, 'Wir warten immer noch,' we are still waiting. When I backed away in shock, her eyes closed again, and there was no evidence they had ever opened." The scientist was removed from the project the following day and diagnosed with extreme stress-induced hallucinations.
However, 3 other researchers have reportedly experienced similar phenomena, each describing the same black eyes and telepathic communication. Further analysis of the chamber itself revealed additional horrors. The walls were lined with a special material that contained traces of rare earth metals combined with organic compounds. Preliminary testing suggested this material might be capable of absorbing and redirecting certain types of energy, potentially creating what one physicist described as a containment field for consciousness. Moreover, etchings found beneath the children's beds contained symbols consistent with those used in ancient Tibetan death rituals, arranged in precise geometric patterns. Dr. Werner's journals made repeated references to the concept of Welteislehre, or world ice theory, a pseudoscientific concept popular among Nazi leaders that proposed the universe was created from cosmic ice.
Werner appeared to believe that by reducing the children's body temperature to near freezing while maintaining minimal cellular function, he could create a state of suspended animation from which they could later be revived. The chamber's temperature was maintained at just above freezing by an ingenious system powered by geothermal energy, designed to function indefinitely without external power. Perhaps most chilling were the preparations Werner had made for the children's eventual awakening. Adjacent to the main chamber was a smaller room containing 30 sets of adult-sized Nazi uniforms, weapons, and detailed instructions for the children to follow upon their revival. These instructions included locations of other sealed facilities throughout Europe and South America, as well as names of Nazi sympathizers who were supposed to help them rebuild the Reich. The meticulousness of these preparations suggested Werner truly believed these children would one day walk out of the chamber to continue the Nazi legacy. Genetic testing of the children revealed another layer to the horror. All 30 children showed evidence of genetic manipulation, with their DNA containing sequences that do not appear in the human genome. Dr. Elena Vazquez, a geneticist who examined the samples, was visibly disturbed during her presentation. "Whatever was done to these children fundamentally altered them at a genetic level," she explained. "Some of the sequences we've identified appear similar to those found in organisms capable of extreme regeneration, such as certain species of jellyfish or salamanders. Others are completely unknown to science. These children are no longer entirely human." The ethical questions surrounding what to do with the children have created international tension. Some scientists argue they should be properly laid to rest, their suffering finally ended. Others insist that they represent too valuable a scientific resource to destroy, potentially holding secrets that could revolutionize our understanding of life and death. Religious leaders from various faiths have weighed in, many suggesting that the children's souls are trapped and must be released through appropriate burial rites. German authorities have established a special ethics committee to determine the children's fate, but deliberations have been ongoing for months with no resolution in sight. Meanwhile, the children remain in the chamber, continuing their impossible existence between life and death. Several months into the investigation, security footage from the facility captured something that defies explanation. At exactly 3:15 in the morning, all 30 children opened their eyes simultaneously for approximately 7 seconds before closing them again. During those 7 seconds, every electronic device in the facility malfunctioned, and the temperature in the chamber dropped by 20 degrees. The 3 guards on duty all reported experiencing intense headaches and nosebleeds, followed by nightmares that continued for weeks afterward. Following this incident, researchers made another horrifying discovery. Previously unnoticed markings on the children's arms, which had been dismissed as birthmarks or discoloration from the preservation process, began to change. The markings gradually formed into what appeared to be a countdown, with symbols shifting every day. Mathematical analysis suggested the countdown would reach its conclusion on April 30th of next year, the anniversary of Hitler's death. Dr. Wilhelm Fischer, a military historian specializing in Nazi occult research, was brought in to consult on the markings. Upon seeing the children for the first time, he collapsed into violent seizures, blood streaming from his eyes. When he regained consciousness 3 days later, he refused to discuss what he had seen, saying only, "They are not waiting to awaken. They are waiting for something to arrive." He took his own life the following morning. An international debate has erupted over whether to destroy the facility and its occupants. Some argue that whatever Werner created poses too great a risk to humanity to be allowed to continue existing. Others counter that destroying the children might trigger unknown consequences, possibly releasing whatever force Werner had managed to harness. The debate became even more heated when it was discovered that several high-ranking officials arguing for the preservation of the facility had familial connections to former Nazi party members. In a disturbing development, residents living in the area above the bunker have begun reporting strange dreams in which children in Nazi uniforms stand at the foot of their beds, whispering in unison. These dreams are always followed by nosebleeds and the appearance of small, crescent-shaped bruises on the dreamer's arms. Local hospitals have reported a 300% increase in sleep disorders and night terrors since the bunker was opened. Medical teams monitoring the children have noted another impossible phenomenon. Their internal temperature has been slowly rising degree by degree. When first discovered, their core temperature was just above freezing. Now it has risen to nearly 15 degrees Celsius. If the trend continues, they will reach normal human body temperature by April 30th, the same date indicated by the countdown markings on their arms. Further analysis of Werner's journals has revealed connections to a little-known Nazi program called Lebensborn Jenseits, or Fountain of Life Beyond. This program, apparently operating in parallel with the more famous Lebensborn breeding program, focused on what Werner called securing the Reich's future through means beyond natural life. References in the journals suggest that Werner believed he was creating not just immortal children, but conduits through which entities from the cosmic void could enter our world and establish a Reich that transcends human limitations. In the most recent and perhaps most disturbing development, one of the researchers working in the facility, Dr. Hans Reimann, reported that while alone with the children, he observed a thin black fluid seeping from their eyes and ears. Analysis of this fluid revealed it to contain both organic and inorganic components in a structure unlike anything known to science. More alarming still, when left in a sealed container, the fluid appeared to organize itself into complex patterns reminiscent of the symbols found etched beneath the children's beds. Dr. Reimann was later found in his apartment, having carved similar symbols across every inch of his walls, floor, and ceiling. When questioned, he claimed he couldn't remember doing it, but that he had been having dreams in which the children spoke to him, teaching him the language they learned while waiting. He was placed under psychiatric observation, where he continues to draw the symbols compulsively, claiming they are the vocabulary of what comes after humanity. A week after this incident, security personnel reported that one of the children, a boy designated as Subject 7, had moved. Not the subtle changes in expression previously documented, but an actual physical movement. Security footage showed the boy's right hand slowly closing into a fist over the course of 6 hours. When researchers attempted to examine the child the next day, they discovered his fist could not be opened, as if the muscles had locked in place. Inside his clenched hand, they could feel something solid, though what it might be remains unknown. Public knowledge of the facility has been strictly controlled, with official statements referring only to the discovery of a historically significant Nazi research site. However, leaked information has led to the formation of cult-like groups who believe the children are harbingers of some form of transcendence. These groups have begun appearing around the world, their members identified by crescent-shaped scars they inflict upon themselves, and their practice of standing perfectly still for hours, eyes closed, as if listening to distant voices. The scientific team has been reduced to a skeleton crew as more and more researchers have requested reassignment, citing psychological distress. Those who remain report increasing difficulty sleeping and persistent sensations of being watched. Several have noted that they find themselves standing beside the children's beds with no memory of having approached them. Others report hearing whispered conversations in German when alone in the facility, though the children's lips never move. Perhaps most alarming is the effect the facility appears to be having on the surrounding area. Plants within a half-mile radius have begun growing in unnatural patterns, forming the same symbols found within the bunker. Animals avoid the area entirely. Electronic devices malfunction with increasing frequency the closer they are to the site. Local residents report that their shadows sometimes move independently of them, especially at sunset, stretching toward the location of the bunker as if pulled by an unseen force. As international tensions mount over what should be done with the facility and its occupants, a new theory has emerged regarding Werner's true intentions. Some researchers now believe that the pediatrician never intended for the children to physically awaken at all. Instead, they suggest that the physical bodies were meant to serve as anchors for something else, something that has been growing stronger over the decades, feeding on the children's suspended life force, waiting for the right moment to fully manifest in our world. This theory gained credence when researchers discovered hidden passages in Werner's journals, written in a code that had initially been overlooked. Once deciphered, these passages revealed the doctor's belief that he had made contact with entities he called Die Jenseitsherren, the Lords of the Beyond. Werner wrote that these entities promised the Nazis victory if they were provided with vessels through which to enter the physical realm. The children, it seems, were intended to be those vessels. The countdown continues. The children's temperatures rise. Their expressions shift from anguish to what some researchers now describe as anticipation. The black fluid appears with increasing frequency. The symbols spread. And in cities around the world, people report dreams of Nazi children standing in formation, their eyes black and empty, their voices speaking in unison. We have been patient. We have been growing. We are still waiting. Whatever Dr. Werner set in motion 80 years ago in that bunker beneath Berlin continues to unfold. The children who are not quite dead, whose bodies continue to grow despite all natural laws, may be harbingers of something beyond our comprehension. As April 30th approaches, the world holds its breath, unaware of what might be awakening in the darkness below. Do you believe some Nazi experiments actually succeeded in ways we've kept hidden from the public? What would you do if you encountered one of these children with black eyes asking for directions on a dark street? Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more disturbing historical mysteries that challenge our understanding of reality. The truth is often darker than we dare imagine.